This episode of No Bad Food is brought to you in part by Whiskey Lane. Are you a producer of artisan food or drinks looking to get your name out there? Look no further. Whiskey Lane's team of social media, branding, and marketing experts is here to help. They'll take care of all that stuff for you so that you can focus on doing what you do best, making awesome products for your customers. Here at No Bad Food, we know that buying locally made products goes a long way toward making our world more sustainable, and that's why we're proud to be sponsored by Whiskey Lane. So, what are you waiting for? Grab your nearest artisan cheese or homebrewed IPA and run to whiskeylane.ca to find out more. And remember, that's whiskey the Canadian way, without an E.
Hope you understand. It just takes a little time. It takes a little time. It takes a little time with me. I hope you don't mind. We'll take it slow this time.
Hi, I'm Tom Zalatni, and you're listening to the No Bad Food Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. This is a show about great food and the people who love to make and eat it. Our mandate is simple: to explore, taste, and learn about food in ways that celebrate all the things that make it great. Every week we dig into a different dish, meal, ingredient, cuisine, or piece of food media, exploring the history and culture around it, sharing favorite recipes, and learning from our wonderful guests. The only rule? You gotta love it. After all, there's no such thing as bad food. Today is National Cubano Day, but before we dig in, I want to take a minute to acknowledge that the studio where I'm recording is situated within the traditional and unsurrendered territories of the Ganyangahaga First Nations. As settlers, it's important that we remember that the lands we occupy are not our own, and that we engage in conversations that challenge the colonial mindset. I want to encourage you to take some time today and every day to reflect on your relationship with the land you live on, and with the indigenous communities of that area. So today, August 23rd, is Cubano Day, and to celebrate, I am going to be talking to my good friend Andrew Henderson about his love of this very good sandwich. If you're not familiar, the Cuban sandwich, or Cubano, is a variation on a ham and cheese made with ham, roasted or smoked pork, Swiss cheese, pickles, and mustard on Cuban bread, which is not entirely unlike a baguette or a ciabatta in shape, and typically pressed like a panini. It originated among Cuban immigrant workers in Florida and, like any tasty local food, sparked a rivalry between folks in Miami and Tampa about whose version of the sandwich is best. Some people put lettuce and tomato on it, some people add salami for a little extra kick, but the one thing everyone can agree on is that the Cuban sandwich is delicious enough to deserve its own holiday. So, call up your local sandwich shop, order yourself a Cubano right now, and kick back and enjoy this episode of No Bad Food. And my guest on this week's episode of No Bad Food is the one, the only Andrew Henderson. Andrew is one of the co-hosts of Debate This and The Plus is Loose, one of my absolute favorite video game podcasts and one of my absolute favorite Disney Plus content podcasts / the only Disney Plus content podcast I listen to. Andrew, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Tom. It's good to be here. I mean, look, there is a lot of Disney Plus content out there. Disney Plus, like, talking heads content out there. So if any one person to say, like, this is my favorite, that's a huge win for me.
I get that. That's how I feel being in the food world, where it's like, I personally listen to like 6 or 7 food podcasts that I think are better than my own. So if people like mine the most, that's great.
You have to consider yourself like a curator of content, but also a content creator.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the Spark Notes version of like, here's what all of the other 7 YouTubers are talking about.
Well, that's it.
Works.
You know, people don't listen to podcasts for necessarily fresh information that they've never heard before. They listen for the personalities of the people on the shows. And so, you know, I am the only podcast host who is me, and hopefully that works for people.
If you need a pitch, right? We may not be the first, we may not be the most educated or even the best, but we're like a less problematic E-Bombs world of Disney Plus Marvel content.
Oh no. Well, there's something for you.
That's got to be for somebody.
Yeah, that's it. So obviously, you know, we're here to talk about food. We are going to talk more at length about one specific food in a bit. But before we dig into that, I always like to get my guests to kind of introduce themselves a little bit and talk about like their relationship with food writ large. So how about you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would love to. So outside of my podcasting stuff, I recently bought a house this past year, and I thought that I would get more into cooking with the pandemic and everything. I think on the last time on the show, I was very optimistic and I said something like, yeah, I'm so looking forward to like diving in all these cookbooks. So fast forward, narrator, it didn't happen. And I have actually gone the opposite direction and have lived exclusively on Uber Eats for the last 8 months of my life, which I keep telling myself is fine, and I have to let that be okay. But I love sandwiches. I love sandwiches. I love sandwiches so much. My partner makes fun of me because she says all the time, I don't understand how you can eat a sandwich every day for lunch, and I do. And if I had one food, like it would be sandwich. It is the greatest thing that we have, and the greatest sandwich is the Cubano.
Okay.
So
There's
why would I not? Right? I mean, it's accurate.
Sure.
So why would I not want to come on your show and talk about the Cubano? That's it. I podcast and I love sandwiches. That's really the only interesting stuff about me.
These are two facts.
TBH.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm curious. So right out the gate, obviously, we're talking Cubanos today. So what I know about the Cubano as a sandwich, the Cuban sandwich, is that it is typically a variation of a ham and cheese. Usually there's pickle. Usually there's Swiss cheese, mustard, 2 kinds of pork, right? So ham, roasted pork. And it's on... traditionally on Cuban pressed bread, but you make it with what kind of bread you got sometimes, depending on where you are. I know it originated among Cuban workers in Florida. You're not from Florida, so how did you become passionate about this kind of sandwich?
Excellent question. I think so. Like Cubano, let's be honest, it's a fancy panini.
Sure.
it's just a spicy panini. So there was I think there was a time in just like middle America, it was just like everyone was just crazy about paninis for 6 months. Like that's all. Like every middle 20 something millennial was getting a panini press. Like everyone was just panini crazy down here, and I don't know why, but it just again it was overnight. Everybody had a Cubano. Like every place that had sandwiches had a Cubano, and then they had the usual buff chick wrap, which is my shorthand for buffalo chicken wrap,
sure.
Which is a not very good shorthand. And then the usual staples, the chicken salad, but it was Cubano was always here, and it was just big panini press was selling out panini presses left and right, so they were everywhere.
Right.
And my I guess if you want to say my origin story is in college I managed a Jimmy John's.
Okay.
Which you want to talk about problematic companies in America. Holy cow. But it was I always say it was the most fun job I ever had, because you get up, and I woke up at 4 a.m. and would just bake bread. This was my year after college, and I would just bake bread, and I would listen to punk rock at 5:30 in the morning, and it was great. It was amazing. And I really weirdly enough, running this crappy fast food chain, developed a love for making sandwiches.
Sure. And
so I also, while that specifically developed a hatred for mayonnaise.
Okay.
So those two things together, then kind of evolved to only have mustard on my sandwiches. So the Cubano for me is just a perfect blend of smoked meat, cheese, spicy, pickle, mustard.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I don't want to say it's the perfect sandwich, but it's the perfect sandwich for me.
Sure. Well, and I think that that's almost more important, right? I don't think that we can really name a perfect sandwich categorically. I think it's the BLT, but not for me necessarily, right? I think that there's too much that goes into that to really be able to label it. But I think that, I get it. It's funny you bring up the thing about when everybody got a panini press and everybody was making Cubanos. Our upstairs neighbor, who I miss dearly, she left a year and a half ago, but lived above us for years before that. When she was moving away, had a bunch of stuff she was getting rid of, and she was like, oh, hey, do you want like a George Foreman panini press because I have one that I've literally never taken out of the box. So before I bother moving it to a new house and not taking it out of the box, do you guys just want it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to get so into paninis. And we made Cubanos 2 or 3 times and then put it back in the box and put it away. And
that was
yep.
It was a great 2017, I'm sure.
I think, to be fair, I think it was 2019, but yeah.
Fair, okay. Maybe different timelines. It didn't reach Canada until 2019.
Yeah, exactly. We're a little bit further away from Florida, despite, half the population of Montreal going to Florida every winter. But yeah, I get it. It is a truly wonderful sandwich. I think having the mustard play with the pickle is, and this isn't profound or anything, but I think it's just such a time honored perfect combination,
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a reason that it is, those are both on cheeseburgers and cheeseburgers are good. Those are both on Cubanos and Cubanos are good. Like pickle and mustard. I mean, think about Southern food, right? Mustard based sauces are a thing. Pickles with your barbecue is a thing. It's
it super is.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a really good combo.
It's just like it stems from the same. So I tell people a lot, as a joke, I love. Okay, so the last time I was on your show, I talked about sauerkraut for 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I love offensive food.
Sure.
and the brinier, the more vinegary, the better. I'm down. Now here's the question though. Well, are you Tom? Are you pro mustard or are you anti mustard?
As a kid, I was very anti-mustard. Sometime in my adult life, that changed, and now I put mustard on everything.
Okay. Now, is it yellow mustard, stone ground, or the Dijon?
I'm a yellow mustard person.
Okay. Same.
I will sometimes do the grainy stuff. I will sometimes do the processed Dijon. I don't love either of them. I'm really a yellow mustard person. Same
here. I like yellow mustard for the same reason I like pickles.
Right.
Now, it's interesting for the Cubano. I think that's one of the few situations where a more pungent Dijon or stone or brown or stone ground, the little balls, it actually works because for the same reason, it kind of brings out not just the pickles but the pork.
Sure.
Because that's the other thing. It's not just 2 kinds of pork. It's smoked pork shoulder.
Right.
Which is 1, delicious, but 2, powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
And
it will just kick the shit out of a boring mayonnaise any day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I do think so not every pickle, obviously. They're just gonna there are so many different ways to make pickles. Pickles are a fascinating food to research historically. Pickles, interestingly, were not really a thing in any kind of American food culture until Jewish immigrants started bringing them over to the tenement buildings in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, a couple hundred years ago or whatever, to the point where, New Yorkers were reporting on, the pickle eating habits of the New York Jews and saying that it was an absolutely horrendous thing that they were eating. Good stuff. Look it up. But
yeah, I will.
The pickle has become, such a beautiful and varied thing since then. And a lot of the pickles that I buy do have mustard seed floating in the jar with them. So it's already part of the brine. So I think that in that respect, it makes sense to me to have kind of a grainy mustard on the sandwich with it because I don't know, they play together nicely,
Yeah, they're complementary colors, if you will.
Sure, yeah, exactly. But yeah, I get that. I think that the power of this sandwich is with pork being such a kind of, I don't know if I want to call it rich or lean or what the word is that I'm looking for, but it really, it's it's got body, I guess.
It's got body. Well, and it's, let me help you because I also can't put it to words because it's not the ham, right? A ham, you can do a ham and cheese sandwich and whatever.
Yeah.
It is specifically that cut of pork.
Right.
That's while pork is really lean, that cut of pork, the pork shoulder is pretty fatty for pork. And it is the most umami of the pork meats.
Yeah.
I think of the cuts. I've never dissected pork this much, but it's almost, it is the texture of a beef brisket.
Yeah. Well, and it
without it being beef.
Yeah, and I think that you're right that it is it's the fattiness of it, right? That having the sort of fatty meat on there makes it, I think richer is the word I'm going to go for here. It gives it a richness that ham alone doesn't have. But as we know, man cannot live by ham alone. So you got to add the extra pork to it. And I think that rich stuff is kind of asking to be cut through by acid a little bit. And I think that that's where the pickle and the mustard like hit it nicely, right? Is that if you get the balance right, you should in every bite be able to get, you know, the ham, the pork shoulder, the mustard, the pickle, and have that kind of perfect blend happening where like the richness of the pork doesn't overwhelm you because you've got that acid cutting through it.
Yeah, it is this combination of individually any of those ingredients are like but just together the saltiness of the ham, the richness of the pork, that pork, like even the greasiness of the pork, and then wrapped all together the Swiss cheese, which like again, Swiss cheese is kind of a disgusting cheese, but inherently brings out smokiness, right? Like it just works. Like it is a very, very specific but very comprehensive combination of ingredients.
What's I'm gonna kind of bump on that. What makes you call Swiss cheese disgusting? I'm curious. I love Swiss cheese.
I know. Listen. Like again, self-described sandwich fan. I have never been a hater of Swiss cheese. My dad ate it. I remember my dad eating Swiss cheese like every single day. And I just bought like some slices at the store the other day, and the last 3 sandwiches I've had, I'm like, oh, this tastes like garbage. Like, why? And I thought that the ham that I bought was old, and then I bought like brand new stuff. And I've tested it like with three other combinations. Like this all tastes like dog shit. Like what is happening?
Right.
And it was the Swiss cheese, man. Like I don't know.
That's a bummer.
It's really depressing. It's a super bummer because I have loved Swiss cheese forever. Like it's you know, second favorite. Like it's pepper jack and Swiss cheese. Like those are my go-tos. Yeah.
So it sounds like maybe just the most recent Swiss cheese you bought was a bad batch, and
I don't know. I don't know. I'm really sad, but kind of hating on Swiss cheese right now. 2021 is the year of not liking Swiss cheese, I guess.
You know, I get that. Every once in a while, I had a bad shrimp once, and so like if you don't properly like clean the shrimp, it can have kind of there's shit in the shrimp, right? Like when you buy shrimp, spoilers to anyone listening who doesn't know this, but when you buy shrimp, there's shit in it, and it's supposed to be cleaned out. And sometimes it's pre-cleaned when you buy it, which is great. But I think this one time when I was in high school, I had a bad shrimp that just hadn't been cleaned properly. And you know the smell of a horse? Like the distinct, like, oh, that's a horse kind of smell that you can smell from blocks away. And you're like, we're entering the part of town where horse lives. That's what this shrimp tasted like. And then I couldn't eat shrimp for years afterward because I had this I would look at shrimp and be like, I don't know that's not going to taste like horse. And I got over it eventually. But I can see, the problem with cheese,
unfortunate.
I feel like cheese, by virtue of being a product that is already fermented, if you eat some cheese that has gone bad, it's so devastating, and it can be so hard to build that trust back up again. So I hope that you were able to work through that.
What am I going to do? Drive 3 minutes away to the grocery store and get more cheese? Come on.
Absolutely not. How far are you from Wisconsin? That might be your best bet. Hey, it's the mid-roll. If you're enjoying the show so far, make sure to hit subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on so that you never miss a new episode. While you're at it, consider leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or sharing this episode with a friend. For every new rating and review I get during the month of August, I'll be donating $2 to the Depot, my local food bank here in NDG. They can turn every $1 into $3 worth of food for a family in need, so by doing the simple, free act of leaving a rating and review of this show, you're functionally donating $6 of good to people who need it. There's literally no other way to turn 0 into 6, so if that math is exciting for you, go do it. You can read all about what the Depot is doing at the link in the description of this episode. Now that this show's been heavily focused on food for a while, I went back and noticed that most of our existing Apple Podcast reviews are super outdated and talk about the show like it's a comedy podcast and also misgender me. I use they/them pronouns now exclusively, so if you've left a review in the past, take this opportunity to go update it, and I'll include that as a new review, even if it's technically just an update of an old one, because accurate reviews that don't misgender me are more helpful than outdated ones that do. do. Yay! Lastly, if you haven't had a chance yet to listen to last week's episode where my guest Matt Cole and I talked about the famous German sausage bratwurst, what makes them delicious, and how I spent the better part of a weekend making my own by hand, go cue it up and listen to it after you finish this one. It's a really fun episode, and I go into kind of disgusting detail about how the sausage gets made, so if that's interesting for you, go check it out. Anyway, that's enough from me. Let's get back to my conversation with Andrew Henderson. Okay, ideal world. You have all of the money, all of the time and the resources. You can get whatever bread, whatever cheese, get your ham and your pork and your pickles and your mustard from wherever you want. You can have whoever you want prepare it for you. There's no holds barred. If you want Bobby Flay to make you a Cubano, Bobby Flay will make you a Cubano. What's your dream sandwich?
Oh man, I think I don't know how like cliche of an answer this is or not, but I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel Binging with Babish.
Sure.
I bought his first cookbook, and in that cookbook is like the first selection is the Cubano. One of his I think his third or fourth video was the Cubano from the movie Chef, which he is a big fan of. I don't really care about.
Sure.
But that's whatever. It's fine. I mean, I like Jon Favreau. He's fine.
Yeah. He was great in Spider-Man.
He was great in MCU. But his video of making the Cubano was the closest I ever got to actually wanting to make a Cubano from scratch. Again, have not, most likely will not.
Sure.
But it's definitely the closest that I've got to wanting to replicate it myself. And he is one of those people, when he makes a sandwich, you know that he's into it. He makes a lot of things, but he is always into sandwich, and that sandwich years later, in his book, he says still one of the greatest things I've ever eaten. So my answer is the Binging with Babish guy. Make me the Cubano that you made to replicate the one from Chef.
I like that. I like having a very specific answer to that. I think that's cool. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that there is something to that, right? When you can tell that someone loves making the thing that they're making, and then it looks good on top of that. I don't know. I think you can't beat that.
Yeah. It's I mean, again, cliche, made with love. It's made with actual passion.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, his Cubano doesn't. I think probably because he just didn't have the equipment. He didn't smoke his pork.
Okay.
He actually roasted it.
Okay.
Over over a couple days.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, so I would be curious if the lack of the smokiness, how different that is in the overall combination.
I don't know. I mean, I know just off Wikipedia, and now take this with a grain of salt.
Sure.
But Wikipedia calls it roasted pork. Now I agree, smoked pork. Top tier, but I think that it's possible that it's not it doesn't definitionally have to be smoked in order for it to be good. I think the ham is probably always smoked by default, so maybe there's different degrees of that, but I could see a really nice roasted pork being a good a good solution. When we were making them here, it was around the same time that I had just gotten into smoking with my charcoal grill for the first time. So I just smoked some extra pork and, brought that upstairs, and we used it over the course of a couple of days. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I could see it. I could see roast pork. Sounds good to me. I need it.
Well, let me flip the question back on you.
Sure.
The one of the two of us who actually cooks. What is the best sandwich that you have made?
Ooh. I am not very good at sandwiches. I'm going to start by saying that. I can make a passable sandwich. I can absolutely, make a sandwich that will taste fine, be good, whatever. I am not a sandwich artist. And I don't just mean that in the, I've never worked at Subway, but I also just, it's not where I shine. But my favorite sandwich right now, because I'm gonna take it that direction, I think, just in terms of if I had to ask anyone to make me a sandwich, it's not specifically a Cubano. I don't know that anyone where I am sells them. They might. I have yet to find one. But my favorite sandwich right now is from a place called Cafe 92 in my neighborhood that I used to work next door to and no longer do. But every day when I had a shift at the pizza place I used to work at, I would go to Cafe 92 and I would get a coffee and I would get a ham and cheese sandwich on a croissant with a like black pepper mayo and lettuce, tomato, and spinach. And it was heavenly. It was
Love that.
Yeah. Or no lettuce, just tomato and spinach, I think. Yeah. That is my like absolute favorite sandwich.
Yeah.
You know,
simple, classic, good.
That's it. But it's funny. I am with you in terms of like not being a huge mayonnaise person. If I had to go between mayonnaise and mustard, I'd go mustard. But I think that the black pepper in this specific mayonnaise saves it.
Yeah. I'm not a teetotaler when it comes to mayo. Like I'll eat like chicken salad, egg salad, and stuff. And when mayonnaise is appropriate,
sure,
I'll have it.
Right. Yeah. You can tolerate it. You just don't seek it out.
Correct.
Yeah, I get that. There's a textural thing with mayonnaise that I don't like, that I find yogurt has as well, where like when I eat it, it coats my mouth in a way that I super don't appreciate.
Ooh, yeah, I get that. I super get that.
Yeah, and I think like I have a little bit of like a sensory issue. I'm sure it's diagnosable. I don't know. Where like I'm more sensitive to textures and to feeling things on my body than a lot of people. And I find that mayonnaise and yogurt are one of those things that just always hits that in a really negative way for me. So if mayonnaise is in something, it has to be in a small enough quantity that I can taste it but not feel it. And mustard doesn't have that problem. So step up your game, mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise and sour cream skeeve me out. I don't know why.
Cream cheese, on the other hand, I have no issue with. I don't know.
Yeah,
no.
I'll eat cottage cheese every day, but
sure, straight out of the tub.
Straight out of the tub, baby.
Cool,
like a freaking monster.
That's okay.
Actually, you get a lot of black pepper on that. Ooh,
all right.
Yeah,
I don't hate that. That. Well,
here we are.
Do you have any final thoughts on the Cuban sandwich before we wrap up?
It's so good. I love them. I'm gonna go order one from Uber Eats. # not an ad. Right now, actually. It's spicy panini. Go get you a spicy panini.
Do it. Yeah, I feel you. That is the most frustrating thing, is like I am very broke right now, and a large part of why I am broke is because Montreal is going through a heat wave. And also, capitalism. Like, it's
all of the usual.
Yeah. I had started to rely heavily on, Daddy Trudeau's government money, and it got decreased recently by a significant amount, and I wasn't ready for that. So now I'm in this awkward period between good government money and good student financial aid, where August is just a bad month. But the other reason is because we are just, I just constantly do Uber Eats because it's too hot to go to the grocery store. And because when you have a toddler, going to the grocery store is a pain in the ass. And because for whatever reason, the grocery store that's close to us never has good meat. Like their meat is always like rancid and everything else is good.
No.
But it's like, if I'm going to get meat, I have to go to the other grocery store that's like twice as far away, and it's a whole thing. So I feel you on the Uber Eats thing. It really makes me curious about, like, I know we're constantly shitting on Jeff Bezos and Amazon for like existing and being as like every day for a lot of people as it is, but I sort of feel like Uber Eats is riding those coattails a little bit.
Yeah, it super is. And it's one of those things, like, I really do try to vote with my wallet, and I don't want to, sponsor companies that I don't agree with. It's just, it's so goddamn convenient, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
It's so convenient.
Yeah. Until you do the math.
Well, that's the that's the strategy. You never look at. You have your partner do all the finances, and you never look at it.
Yeah. Oh dear. Well, on that note, do you have anything you want to plug before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean,
Not
look,
Uber Eats.
if you're listening to this show, you've probably heard about Debate This before. We're a comics and video game show. We ask the hero questions everyone else is afraid to ask, like, what if Kirby ate a Metal Gear boss or whatever. That's a fun time. We laugh, we cry, we mostly laugh. And we, as we mentioned at the top of the hour here, we have a newer show called The Plus is Loose, where we break down all of the Marvel shows on Disney Plus. So we just, as of this recording, released the first episode for What If, the new animated series, which is very interesting. If you're into Marvel, go check it out. We try to co-travel with the episodes, but also we'll talk enough about it so you don't have to have known all the prior stuff. So yeah, enjoy it.
Both very good shows. I will co-sign that recommendation. I would highly recommend checking them out. Andrew is actually one of the hosts of Debate This. So
I am actually one of the hosts of Debate This.
I will forever.
That's a very funny bit. It's a very funny bit. I mean, look, like I like to consider Left Trigger, Right Trigger as our sister show.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're just the urban version of
they're New York and you guys are
New Yorkin.
Yeah, they're the New York Debate This, and you guys are the Midwestern Left Trigger, Right Trigger.
We're ranch flavored Left Trigger, Right Trigger.
Well, hey, thank you again. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Always a pleasure.
Happy National Cubano Day.
Hey, happy National Cubano Day.
Woo, eat one. And that brings us to the end of our show. Thank you so much for listening to No Bad Food. Do you want to join the conversation? Hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at NoBadFoodPod. If you like this episode and want to help me make the show even better, you can head to patreon.com/NoBadFoodPod to donate. For as little as $1 a month, you'll be joining the ranks of fine folks like Patrick, Gabriel, Kendall, and Carlea, Thomas, George Poppy, Killian, Sarah, Angelica, Anne, Andrew, Laura, Chantal, and David. Patrons get access to all kinds of awesome perks, including the ability to request topics for episodes of the show. So if that's exciting for you, you can head to patreon.com/NoBadFoodPod to make it happen. We also have merch, and you can hit the merch link in the description of this episode to get all sorts of great stuff from our lovely friends over at TeePublic. And of course, you can support us for free by leaving a rating and review on your podcatcher of choice and by sharing this episode with a friend. Our theme music is by Zach Ingalls, and our cover art is by David Flam. You can find links to support both of them, as well as links to everything Andrew wants you to check out in the description of this episode. And last but certainly not least, this show is produced and edited by me, Tom Zalatni, as part of the Upford Network. You can find out about all the great shows on our network at upfordnetwork.com. See you next week.
You understand. It just takes a little time. It takes a little time. It takes a little time with me. I hope you don't mind. We'll take it slow this time.
I'm Tefra Jemian, the producer and host of the Yeah Podcast, a young adult lit review podcast focusing on amplifying the diverse voices in YA literature. Join us as we dig into the world of young adult books, reviewing new releases, revisiting old classics, and exploring what YA lit can teach us at any age. Discover the world of YA lit through exclusive author interviews, book reviews, genre smackdowns, and more. The Yeah Podcast, available through the Upford Network on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and wherever else you find your podcasts. This is our book club, and you're invited. Yeah!
If you're someone who interacts with kids, you're probably familiar with moments of being asked questions you're just not equipped to answer. Whether it's the old favorite, where do babies come from, or the nuances of discrimination, Rad Child Podcast has your back. Each episode, your host, Seth Day, leads a discussion about topics like race, disability, loss, gender, sexuality, and so much more. Our goal is to give grown-ups the tools to talk to kids about almost anything. So come give a listen. Rad Child Podcast, helping to raise a generation of open, compassionate, rad kids. Available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, and just about anywhere else.